Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the We Get to Do This podcast. This week we had on guest Alex Zauner.
Alex is the owner, founder of Lucille's Bottle Shop, and we thought this would be a great episode for the month of January because this is a time we're talking about dry January, people being sober curious, and we get to hear about Alex's story and how Lucille's came to be, how she went about her sobriety journey, and what that all looks like.
Thanks for listening, as always, and we hope you enjoy the episode.
Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the We Get to Do This podcast. Today, we have the honor of Alex Zauner being here. Alex is the owner of Lucille's Bottle Shop in St. Paul. And I was thinking about how long I've known you for, and I feel like it was 2019 when you were the general manager at Alchemy Highland.
Yeah. Yep.
Timeline, that's when you were jam there, right?
Yeah.
And I was in a huge transition time in my life living in Highland, and I remember coming to Alchemy, that was the first place that I went, and honestly that was a huge shift in my fitness health journey at the time because I had come from Washington for a few years undergrad. Health was just there was just a lot going on, and Alchemy kind of was my kick in the butt to start getting in shape again, feeling confident in my body. And you were a huge part of that. And I've gone to some of your retreat type things and group events with my mom, and it's been so cool following your journey for the last many years, and now seeing you grow a family, and your kids are the coolest, I want to say.
So I do think they are going to teach me how to be cool. I literally posted a video of Clara at her hip hop last night, and she was dancing with these purple shades on, and I was like, how did she get to be cooler than me? And she's
I'm not saying a lot because I would say you're pretty cool. So the fact that your kids are also cooler is saying a lot.
They're so fun and they crack me up, but Clara is definitely, she brings the vibes.
Yeah, your household seems very fun. So
we have a good time here.
But yeah, I appreciate you being here. And also then during COVID, which I'm sure we'll talk about, you had your own podcast too. So I started following that and hearing more of your personal story. And so this is full circle now, having you on our podcast. So I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here too. So my name is Alex Zauner, and I own Lucille's. So I personally have been sober over 11 years. I have 2 little kids at home, a 4.5-year-old and almost 6-year-old, and then am due with our 3rd baby at the very beginning of June. Yeah, very exciting. I used to work at Alchemy, and I'm very fortunate because Alchemy has brought so many incredible people in my life. I actually just had lunch with an old Alchemy member today to talk about her journey as she's sober curious. And so I think it's really cool and says a lot about that community and the impact that it had on not just the members, but us as staff and those relationships that we were able to build. And it taught me so much. Working at a small business, when I left in 2023 to go work for another small business, gave me the motivation and inspiration to start Lucille's. So I had been hosting workshops, retreats, different spaces for people to personally grow, to get vulnerable, to ask themselves to go deeper, to step out of their day-to-day and reflect on who they want to be and really look at how are they showing up in life with all the shoulds and letting that go. And so I was creating different spaces for that. And in 2019, felt called to go deeper with a podcast. And so I started creating Ripple's podcast. And the podcast was built on the premise of, every single story has an opportunity to create a ripple effect. And we every single day have an opportunity to create a ripple. We don't know the impact that an interaction we have with someone is going to make. So I talked about on the podcast literally holding the door, looking someone in the face and greeting them with eye contact. They could be having a shitty day, And that could be the thing that changes their trajectory of how they interact with other people. And so that was why I wanted to start the podcast, was I believe everyone's story and experiences can create a ripple effect into the world. And so I did my podcast for 3 years. Then I started Lucille's right after I left Alchemy, started to realize I really want to create spaces for people to socialize without alcohol. I was having tons of conversations with people about the challenges of being alcohol free and not really feeling like there were things to do. It felt like you were stuck at home, and I was super passionate and still am really passionate about NA beverages, and that category continues to boom year over year. And in 2023, like what the drinks are now compared to then, it's already like doubled, maybe tripled, even more. And I love educating people, like how NA wine is made, NA beer, helping them to find products that they're excited about and don't just taste like sugar in a cup, which I think a lot of people feel like an NA beverage is, and that's simply not true. There's adaptogens, there's de-alcoholized products, there's products with no added sugar, there's products with lion's mane, like all these different things. And the founders of those brands are so passionate, and I wanted to be kind of like boots on the ground for them. And so when Lucille started, we were doing pop-ups, we were doing samples and tastings and hosting events ourselves, wine and cheese classes, mixology classes, night out events, morning wake up events. And over the last few years, we opened a retail space. Oh my gosh, July 2024. Yeah, July 2024. And we were rocking with that Wednesday through Sunday. And this summer, I just kind of took a pause of like, what do I want Lucille's to be? I don't like retail, is what I realized. I do not like working in retail. I do not like sitting at a shop, waiting for people to come in. I love the education piece. I love connecting with people, having conversations. Like every time someone came in, I was lit up. But in the hours sometimes in between where like nobody would come into the shop, I was getting work done, but I was feeling so drained of trying to find out how can I market people to get into the space? What can I be doing differently? And so I stepped back and actually talked to my friend Kat, who owns the Prep Club. Have you guys ever heard of Prep Club? So they're based out of the west suburbs in the Twin Cities, and they're like a luxury, essentially, meal prep company. And I'd seen her make transitions over the years. And so I started talking with her, and she kind of mentored me around like, you're doing a lot of things right now. And I think as a small business owner, it's really easy to be like, oh, well, this will bring in revenue, this will bring in revenue, this will bring in revenue. And you start to just spread yourself so thin because you're focused on like, how can I get more revenue into my business to get profitable sooner? And what I realized was I was doing all these things, but I, one, wasn't doing any of them super, super well. And two, I was draining myself because of it. And so I had to step back and really like refine what I was doing. And she was really honest with me. She's like, I don't think you should do retail even online. Like, how much time does it take for you to go package the box, drop it off at FedEx, or I was also doing local deliveries, driving it to people. She's like, what are your profit margins after that? And I was like, honestly, nothing. Like nothing at that point. She's like, okay, obviously, like you can have passion in the things that you do, and at the same time, like, what are we doing here? Like, you have to figure out a way. Is it retail that you want to do, or is it events that you want to do? Is it workshops? Is it consulting? Because I was like, I think I could consult restaurants. And she's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to create events. That is what I want to do. And so that has been the shift for Lucille's. I stopped operating the retail space in September, was like our last shift. We still have the space. And for a while I was thinking, we'll keep the space, we'll host our own events and stuff. And we did do that through the fall, and we did some private events there for corporations. But in December, I kind of just decided, I'm just going to have us go fully mobile. I feel fortunate to have connections within the Twin Cities of people that are willing to partner with me to host my events in their space without charging, or if they are charging, it's more reasonable than holding on to a space with rent. My rent is very low, um, which is amazing. If you're in St. Paul, there's this thing called Grow Downtown St. Paul. So I actually had no rent up until this fall. So I had basically a year of no rent. And now it's like a percentage base that I worked out. And what they're trying to do is help small businesses get feet off the ground because most small businesses close due to rent. Rent is just, it's crazy. The Twin Cities rent for retail right now is just absurd. And most businesses need to be making well over $10,000 just probably to be breaking even after rent, after taxes, after payroll, after, purchasing inventory and things like that. So $10,000 to some businesses that are bigger might seem like pennies, but when you're just getting started, obviously you want to say like, yeah, I can get $10,000, but you just don't know. And so a lot of people end up signing these leases, biting off more than they can chew, and their year end comes, or maybe they sign on for 3 years and they can't survive and they have to pull out. And I've seen literally a handful of people that started with Lucille's and opened with Lucille's that had to close because of that, and we would have had to too if we didn't have this opportunity. So yeah, right now we're at this like big transitional phase where I'm hosting warehouse sales and trying to sell off the inventory and pay down debt because we took out a small loan. So like pay that down so that I can really focus the revenue that comes in on our events and create these experiences that show people you don't need alcohol to have fun, that show people how to connect and provide opportunities to get out and socialize with real connection, which I think is just so needed. Not just in the Twin Cities, but really everywhere. So that was very long and winded, but that is what I do, and that is how I got to where I am today. And right now, Lucille's has been full time for me for about a year and a half, and it's shifting more into a part-time thing, so that I can keep growing it, but also shift my energy into something that will support me while I'm growing those events and things.
So is the demographic for those types of events, is that for people that are sober curious, people that are already sober, or literally anyone? Is that kind of the
For
goal?
anybody. I would say like age-wise, it's all different ages. Early 20s to late 60s, people that have been sober for years, people that are in like that sober curious realm, people that are just like, this event sounded fun and I'm cool to socialize whether there's alcohol or not. And I think that is what's been so amazing for me to see is more and more people that do drink are open to getting out in spaces without alcohol, because they realize they just want to socialize, they want to connect. And when we focus our energy on just always going out to the bar and drinking, like we're really having surface level connections. And I think, especially post COVID, more of us are craving that real communication, questions, getting to know people on a deeper level versus like leaving a party and being like, well, I know that person's name. Like, and when you come to an event where there's no drinking, you kind of have to cut the bullshit and you just start to have these real conversations with people.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like my biggest struggle with like that so far that I've faced, I would define myself as sober curious.
Yeah.
For very much so. But I feel like I've been like that for like 5 years. I feel like my biggest struggle is like it's like the middle ground between leaving the event that has the alcohol and going to the event that doesn't have the alcohol. Does that make sense? Like
Like,
specifically like the people at like the first event.
yeah. Is it you're saying like when you're at an event out where there's drinking, like those are the people that you're used to hanging out with, and so there's this barrier to go to the space where there's no drinking and it's like a new group of people?
Yeah, I feel like that's been one of my biggest struggles. You can expose me
Yeah.
too. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
Like I totally understand when I say that it sounds a little
No,
like, you
that's
know.
fair. So what I'm hearing you say is right now most of the people that you socialize with when you're getting together, drinking's usually involved.
Well, I mean, it's changed a lot, I would say, because of my career and like goals
Yeah.
and whatnot. I would say there's still like a big I'm being careful with my words. There's
Yeah,
still a big like pull on myself or influence on myself with
totally.
family, certain friends that, like at Christmas, my brother pulling out the whiskey
Yeah.
and me being like, well, shit, this $100 bottle of
But
whiskey now. You know what I mean?
that's so normal. I think for a lot of people, it is that feeling of how do I set that boundary for myself? And I usually ask people, like, when you're in that phase, it's like, well, like, why do you feel curious about, being in those spaces without alcohol? And I don't think it's realistic to say, like, I'm never going to go anywhere where there's alcohol. Like, that's just impossible. But it's asking yourself, like, okay, like, I'm going to go to this party tonight. I know people are going to be drinking. Like, what do I want to feel when I leave? Like, maybe you are planning to go work out together in the morning and you don't want to be hungover. So it's not to say you can't go to the event, but go to the event and be intentional. And maybe that's grabbing an athletic and a beer and bringing it with you. And you're still part of the experience. You're still connecting with your friends, but it's in a new way. It's in a different way. And then you're able to go home, wake up the next morning, and you feel refreshed and ready to go. I think so many times we see it as black and white, as like, well, if I don't drink anymore, or if I'm taking a break from drinking, like, I can't go to that social event. And for some people, that's fair. And it might be because it could be triggering for you. So that's a whole nother avenue. But if it's more the sense of like, no, I don't think I can go because I'm going to feel pressure to drink, then I think it's asking yourself, well, why do you want to even look at not drinking in the first place or drinking less? And there's always going to be outside pressures. So it's getting clear on like your why of like, why are you sober curious, or what are you wanting to get out of that exploration? Is it just looking to reduce how much you drink maybe like during the week and you're fine going out and socializing? Or is it just deciding like, when do I actually want to drink? When do I not? And then getting clarity for yourself versus always just going in with out a plan. I think having a little bit of a plan can be super helpful. But it's hard, and drinking is everywhere. But what's so cool now is NA beverages can be everywhere too. So if you're going to a restaurant and you are like taking a break, like a month off or something, find the restaurants that have the NA menu that you're excited about, right? Find things that you're looking forward to have. I think can make such a difference. Bring your own beverages to the party. What I have found is like when I bring something NA, there's always usually someone else that was wanting to take a break, but was too nervous to say it, or was also feeling the pressure too. And then they end up having the NA wine with me, or they end up having the NA beer. And it takes one person to be willing to like go through that feeling of discomfort to open up that door. And you'd be surprised, like there might be other people also waiting for that invitation. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, no, totally.
It's hard, and
It is super
family
hard.
stuff is so hard. So hard. I got sober in the fall, and my family doesn't really drink, and I was in an outpatient program, and everyone in my program was like, "The holidays are gonna be so horrible." And I was like, "What do you mean?" Like, going to my family Thanksgiving and Christmas is gonna be the easy part, and they're like, "Oh, no, no, no. That is what my family does. We do like cocktail, like competitions. And yeah, we sip on like, we whip out the expensive like whiskey and do old fashions." And I was like, whoa, I had never been exposed to that. And so that's a really real thing. And I think family is such a different type of avenue outside of friendship, but in both ways, you have to first decide and really get grounded in like why it is you're making that decision. And when you've recognized like, this is an informed decision, this is why I want to do it, it doesn't matter if anybody else understands, but like you understand your why. And sometimes when we're in that like gray area of like, I don't really know, it's really easy to just fall into, well, like, yeah, I'll have that cocktail, or yeah, I'll have that drink, because we're still figuring it out for ourselves. So I usually tell people like when they're in that sober curious phase, like you got to do a little bit more work than just saying like, I'm not drinking right now. Because if you're not rooted in like a clear why, it's really easy to just be like, oh, well, whatever. So I think just taking that pause of like, why am I doing this? What do I want to get out of it? What am I trying to learn? And like seeing it as this like little, it's really your own little like social experiment in a way.
Right. Yeah, and I think that one other thing for me that has been kind of a wild trip was, we have communities and we bond over certain things, right? So we have like our run community, and like when we get together with that community, it's running. That's all we bond over, period, right? And then the same thing goes for I have two really pretty much my best friends in the world that we met in college, and the thing we bonded over was drinking. And like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, we like had like this rough patch because I wasn't drinking as much. At least that's what I told myself, right? And like we were just kind of like butting heads, and there's a lot of like there's just like this weird tension going on. And they eventually like texted me and were like, all right, we need to talk to you. And I was expecting it to be like, okay, you're being lame at hangouts, you're not drinking, that type of thing. And it was like they didn't care about that at all. Like that was just me working that up in my head, assuming that like they only like me because of
Totally.
drinking, right?
Yeah.
And in reality, they were like, no, like that's not the case at all. We just want to find like what can we, do together, and we want you to still want to hang out with us.
Yeah.
And it was like, maturity on that part, I guess. But I think that's another thing too, like with myself that I think that almost I make assumptions of what people will do in those settings or what people will think of me in those settings. And I think a lot of people do, right? Like if I'm not drinking that beer, now I'm no longer fun, right?
100%.
And that's something that I struggle with a lot too, just as a people pleaser.
Yeah.
So, and something I've
Well,
worked on a ton.
I think a few things there. One, we think everyone is thinking about like, oh, they're not drinking. And really, it's like anything. No one's really thinking about it. And if they are really thinking about it or bothered by it, it's probably because they have to do a little bit of their own internal work and look at their relationship with alcohol. But what I think is so cool about what your friends did is they noticed you were making a change for yourself for the better, whatever that journey was. And they decided, like, how can we continue to show up and do activities together? And I don't think that's always the case that people get. I think some people's friendships do shift and they do change, and they're not able to work through that friction of no longer having alcohol as the source of connection for them. And that is a really real challenge and a huge fear. And I think a real big reason why people keep drinking is it's like, well, yeah, how do I keep connecting with these people? And so I feel like, one, that's amazing that your friends were able to show up for you and you could find new things. And I think it's always so fun when you get to have these people that you used to connect over drinking, and then you go out and maybe now you rock climb together or you try different coffee shops or whatever it is, and you get to connect in a new way, and your friendship goes deeper and you discover new things. And I think for the people that are listening and they are sober curious, and their friends don't show up in that way, that can feel really scary. And I feel like if that is you, assessing like, okay, how much do I want to put into these relationships? And you yourself asking those people to come and socialize with you and doing the different things. And you'll start to realize, one, like, maybe those relationships have just changed because you've changed. And my friend, do you know Hannah Van Nest?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll never forget that she said this, but in Minnesota, she said we are womb to tomb people. So like everyone's friends from birth to death. And she's like, that's not normal in a lot of places. And I was like, that's so true. Like, we feel like we have to hold on to relationships with like a death grip, even when we've outgrown them. And I get it. It's scary. I've been there. I have friendships that I've definitely outgrown. And as I've gotten older and as I've gotten more grounded in my sobriety, I've realized I can still have a relationship with those people, but they're no longer my best friends. They're more people that like we've known each other for 15 years. We were in college living together, hanging out all the time, but we have started to go our own ways. We have different passions. We have different joys. We have different ways we like to spend our time. And for a long time, I was forcing myself into those situations, and I was leaving feeling depleted, stressed, frustrated. And I started to ask myself, like, why am I like going to this? And it was because I felt like I should. And I've just realized I still see those people. It's just less. And now when I see them, we get to catch up. We get to have a good time, but the relationship looks different. And that's okay. And so I think if you're someone right now trying to force a friendship to hold on to because you're making a life change, whether it's drinking or getting into fitness, whatever it is, see what you're feeling like when you leave those spaces and how you're feeling, because that is such a good way to check your energy and to like know if like, are these still my people, or like maybe like our timeline has come. And like, I don't think that's bad to say like this friendship has shifted. But we don't like to do that. We like to hold on. And I've had conversations with people before about how interesting it is like when a significant other and that has come to an end, like we break up, we have a conversation. For whatever reason, we don't do friendship breakups, right? Like things just like fizzle. And I think it's okay if you have a friendship breakup conversation, or if you just have a conversation, you could just let it fizzle out, or you could say, hey, I appreciate you. I love you. I'm starting to notice we have different desires and wants in life. I just wanted to address this. I feel like right now where I'm at, I don't have like capacity to continue to be as consistent in this friendship. There's no ill will there. But right now I need to focus my energy into something else. And I think that feels really scary, but like we do that with our loved relationships, right? We do that with our spouses. So I don't know, but I think that's amazing that your friends were able to show up for you in that way and have that conversation. That was really mature of them.
Mhm.
I'm gonna stop hogging the conversation.
No, I think it's real. And I was gonna ask, like, Alex, do you have any it's like that's like the friendship side of it, but I have patients and like some of my friends who have told me that like as this, the individual, they want to stop drinking, but their partner, their
Mm.
husband, their partner of 10 years doesn't want to stop drinking. Like, what do you say to that? Because I feel like
Yeah. I mean,
that's
my
not just
husband
gonna make
drinks.
you like goodbye, you
Yeah.
know?
Jordan drinks, and he and I met when I was sober. And I think every relationship is different. It's one thing if you feel like your partner has a problem with alcohol. Obviously, that's different. If it's more like you're not drinking and you don't want them to be drinking, I think is a really hard conversation because it is so personal. Like the decision to not drink is so personal. So to come to that conclusion on your own and then turn to your partner and be like, okay, I need you to not drink too. Like, whoa, think how hard it was for you to come to that realization and then just assume that your partner is going to also quit. I think you have to recognize like you might come to this conclusion and decision and they might not be impacted by it at all in their own drinking. And are you okay with that? Like if you want to do this for yourself, which is what I believe, like you should only quit drinking for you, because at the end of the day, like you're the one who has to continue to commit to it day in and day out. And having conversations, I think, with your partner is really important if you are in that sober, curious phase, whether you're dating or married, whatever it is, like letting them know you're starting to have this because it does impact your partner. I met Jordan, like I said, when I was sober, but I've worked with so many people who got sober while married. And it changed the relationship dynamic because, similar to what you were saying, Jacob, they were going out to breweries together. They were drinking together at night. And that was obviously not going to be the case when one of them quit drinking. And so they had to have this conversation. And I think therapy, like relationship therapy, if you are planning to like truly commit to sobriety and your partner, one, maybe they don't understand. Like they might be like, you don't have a problem. We've come to realize like people are choosing sobriety or choosing an alcohol-free lifestyle for far more reasons than alcoholism. They're choosing it for lifestyle changes. They're choosing it for just more mental clarity. They're choosing it because they actually realize it's making them depressed and anxious. And it's really hard being an outsider looking in and being like, well, I don't understand why you want to do this. And it's not our job to get our partners to understand, but it is important that they support us, because if they don't support you, it is going to be so, so hard. I've had people that I've worked with whose spouses don't drink when they're just one-on-one with their partner anymore. But I've also had challenging relationships where their partner does keep drinking, and initially the sober person thinks they're going to be okay with it, and it ends up not being something they're okay with. And when they express that to their partner is frustrated because they're like, well, originally you said this was fine. And so it is not a one size fits all. Communication is going to always be key. So if you're someone considering sobriety or drinking less or things, having that open conversation with your partner and being open to some form of third-party therapy, I think, to just talk about it so that you guys can be aligned, but also knowing that, like, the sober person's view might shift. When Jordan and I started dating, I was like, I will never find someone that doesn't drink. Like, that wasn't anything I ever considered. I just knew I would end up being with someone that drank because really nobody was talking about sobriety. I got sober in 2014. Like, no one was talking about sober curious, like that wasn't even a thing. And so I just knew I would end up with someone that drank. Now, in today's age, I bet people could find people that are sober curious or not drinking, especially if that's an important thing for you. And I know for some people that it is. My viewpoint on Jordan's drinking has changed. Like, initially I was like, I don't care. And now I've had more conversations where I've had to set more boundaries of like, I actually do find I'm starting to care more, like, if you drink during the week. And we had to have a conversation because he really didn't drink during the week for a while. And then we went through a huge loss in our life and he started drinking during the week. And I was like, how do I go about this? And I started going to therapist and she's like, you have to voice how you're feeling. And that was a really hard conversation. And I think the reality of it is it's like anything. Our viewpoints change. Life happens, adversity happens, challenges happen. And so if you're the person that's sober, like, you're going to likely change how you feel impacted with your partner drinking as life goes on. And, you know, that is something that was really surprising to me. Like, I didn't feel like it really bothered me. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, this is really starting to bother me. And we had to have that conversation. And it was hard because he was like, well, you've never really cared before. And I was like, I know. It feels different right now. And we had a lot of conversations about it and we still talk about it. Like, if I'm feeling triggered by it or frustrated. And I think another thing I've just realized is like my drinking and Jordan's drinking is different. And so it's really hard if you're someone that quits. It's easy to be like, well, why don't they want this too? Because, like, for me, I'm like, sobriety is like the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm like, don't you want this? Like, it's like the best. But you have to realize, like, your partner may never quit drinking, even if you think it's like could be the best thing for them. And how would that make you feel? Like, in all honesty, how would that make you feel? And that's why I think therapy is so important, because you really have to sit with those feelings and thoughts and ask yourself those questions. So, yeah, it's hard. Spouse things are hard. I mean, we've been together, it'll be 11 years this spring. So, he and I got together before I was even a year sober. And so it was also new for me too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dang.
Why
Thanks for
did
sharing that.
why did you go sober?
Yeah, so I quit drinking because, so I always say, like, I lived your typical college life of just binge drinking through college. I, however, definitely had more incidents, I would say, than like the average college goer. But at the same time, it was easy to be like, well, like, everyone's getting drunk. I lost a lot of cell phones. I was just talking about this with my sister. She's like, so how many phones do you think mom and dad replaced for you? And I was like, definitely double digits, like, without a doubt. Thank God it was before iPhones. So I had like those brick phones at that point. And I had to go to the hospital once or twice to like basically sleep off my alcohol that I had consumed because I was throwing up and I was sick. I would pass out in random places, so like it just was not safe what I like was putting myself in these situations. I ultimately my mom specifically for a long time was like, "You need to quit drinking, you need to quit drinking." I was like, "You think I'm gonna like not drink while I'm in college? Crazy. That's crazy." Now today, kids do go to college and don't drink, and it's like, that's amazing. That was something I could never consider. And I was dating someone at the time, and the only time we ever fought was when I drank. And like I vividly remember having a conversation of him being like, "I just wish I could get," in college my nickname was D's. So he was like, "I just wish I could get the D's that like didn't drink all the time or like when you were sober." And, like, that was, like, a huge aha for me, and I ended up going out on one night, and I cheated on my spouse, and I told him the next day, and that ended the relationship, and we'd been together for 3 years, thought we were gonna, like, end up together and get married, and that was really ultimately the thing that made me be like, "Okay, I'm doing things that I would never do sober. I'm hurting people that I deeply care about." I probably should have quit way sooner because I was definitely hurting people I deeply cared about, my family, my parents, like, my close friends. My college friends had to take care of me so much, like, so many things, and now we can laugh about the stories, but at the time, I'm like, "How why did you guys stay friends with me?" Like, and that is the thing that made me be like, "Okay, I gotta pause." So I took 30 days off of drinking, and that felt amazing. I still went with friends and hung out with people and had a good time. But then I was 23 and I was like, but there's no way like I can never drink again. Like that's how can I even say that? So I ended up going out and drank a few more times over the next few weeks. Ended up waking up in a hospital, but I wasn't like admitted. I don't even really remember all of this because it was so foggy. And I didn't have my phone, and I called my roommates who were, like, 2 of my best friends from growing up that I lived with, and I was like, "I need you to come and get me. Like, my dad's on his way to get me. I know for sure, I don't have my phone, to go see my grandparents." And I'm like, "I'm at the hospital." Like, they came and got me. The last thing I'd remembered the night before was having a casual wine night with a girlfriend of mine. Well, it turns out I had left her apartment, so I was drinking and driving. My car I had left in, like, a intersection in Uptown, and there was, like, a dent on it. We only knew where my car was because Find My iPhone. So we drove to my car. It was in the impound lot. They're like, "We towed this car. There's a new dent in it." And my phone and my, keys and my purse were all inside my car when they towed it. And I just started crying because I had called my parents, told them what happened, and I was like, "This is it. Like, I'm done. I'm ready to do outpatient. I don't want to keep waking up, piecing my night together, apologizing to people, being hungover, letting people down, letting myself down." And that was like my turning point. That was the point where I was like, "Okay, I'm ready to fully pivot." And it still felt so scary because I was like, I don't know what this means for me, but I know something has to change. Like, I can't keep living on these cycles of like drinking and it being fine and controlled, and then having a night where I black out and I do something that I'm ashamed of or stupid. And that was my roller coaster, like on repeat through college. It was like a few good nights, one bad one, a few good nights, one bad one. And I was exhausted at this point. And for me, when I signed up for the outpatient, I like texted WhatsApp. We have a WhatsApp group for my college friends, and I told them like that morning, "Hey, I'm doing outpatient. Here's what happened last night. Would love you guys to support me on this." And, I'm having a really hard time with like coming to terms with this. And that was on a Saturday. And then a few days later, it was the night before my birthday. I had one beer as my last, like, this is my last beer ever at an Eric Church concert with my girlfriend, and then have not drank since then. So my sober date is my birthday. So September 17th, 2014, I officially stopped drinking. And what worked for me to get to this point was like letting go of this idea that I'm never drinking again. because that's crazy work. We can't guarantee the future. We cannot say, I'm never going to do something again. Sure, we can say it, but like, how much can you actually mean it? How much can you actually be certain? Like, my mom wanted me so badly to say, I'm never drinking again. And I was like, I just can't commit to that because I don't know. I don't ever want to drink again, but I don't know what is going to happen. And like, I'm committed to this right now. And that's why, like, in AA, the saying truly is 24 hours a day, one day at a time, because I will wake up when I first got sober and I'd be like, I'm not drinking today. Like, that's all I can guarantee. Like, I'm going to do whatever I can to not drink today. And I think that is so true in like so many things in our lives of like, if we just let ourselves like have today and not worry about tomorrow and not worry about yesterday, it gives us so much more peace to be in the present. I have so many people that when they reach out, they're like, I don't know, I've got a bachelorette party in 6 months. I was like, dude, what? I'm like, I get it, but what if 6 months from now, you're the happiest you've ever been and you're so confident in your sobriety that you're not even stressed about it? But like, how many situations do we get worried about, stressed about, overthink and overanalyze when they're so far away that we have no idea how we're going to be when we get to those situations? When I quit drinking, I was 24, I was single, and I'm not kidding you how many people were like, well, you're going to like drink at your wedding, right? And I was like panicked. I was like, oh my God, my wedding? Duh. I have to drink at my wedding. Okay, one, you should never ask someone that in new sobriety, like that they have to drink at their wedding. But I was like panicked. I was like, of course, like a champagne toast, wine with my husband. Yes. Okay, fast forward 2017, Jordan and I get married. The last place I would ever want to drink is my wedding. I want to remember all of it. I want to be present. I want to experience everything. So like, I was stressed for months in early sobriety about all of these future things that I had no idea who or how I was going to feel in those situations. And it took me out of the presence. And so I think in anything, like, we can sit and stress and worry about these futuristic things, but we don't know who we're going to be when we get to that point. And the more, especially in sober curiosity, you can let go of like, well, I've got this thing in a month, or I've got this thing next year. Like, there's never going to be a perfect time. There's always going to be something to stop you from exploring sobriety. Let that go and allow yourself to live in the present and see who you are when you get to that experience or when you get to that situation, because you might surprise yourself. That's not going to say I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but you might actually feel like so much more grounded in your choice for sobriety. You'll have more tools in your toolbox. You'll have your friends supporting you. There's all these other factors that are going to come into play, but you don't know what that's going to look like until you get there. So let yourself be in the here and the now.
So good. What do you think?
What do you think? About what?
Okay, for someone who is sober curious, what do you think is like the number one like first step of like stopping drinking for however long? Like, is it like, I know, one day at a time, all
Yeah.
those things, but like, would you say like, let's try like a January, or let's go to this thing?
Yeah.
Like, what's like the number one thing, would you say?
I think, which I kind of alluded to a little bit, is clarity on your why. So I have like course, like I've done like group coaching, and I have like PDF sober curious starter kits that I made and things. And like literally the very beginning is like helping people to reflect and get clear on their why. Because it's like anything, like, why did you start this podcast? You have to have something to come back to, because there are going to be hard days. There are going to be challenging days. There's going to be days where you want to throw in the towel and say, fuck it, and that's life, and that's true in sobriety. But if you have something that is so clear to why you're making the decision to remove alcohol, or I say like explore not drinking, like, then you can come back to it. So on that day where you're feeling really stressed and you're pissed off, but you've been alcohol free for 14 days and you've been feeling really good and it's been awesome, but like one thing happens at work and you're pissed and you're like, "Ah, I'm just going to have a glass of wine." You go back to that why of why you began the journey. And sometimes that in itself is enough to have you to pause and really ask yourself, like, do I actually want this glass of wine? Do I actually want to go out and take a bunch of shots? And so just like having that thing that you can pause and come back to when it gets tough, because it will. It's, I'm 11 years in, and I think honestly, the last few years have been almost some of my hardest, like compared to my first. And that's because I'm finding new challenges. I'm older. So like when I first quit drinking, it was really hard because everyone was socializing at the bars and like going out. And now I'm older and we're not socializing at the bars, which is where I used to get really drunk. We're going to dinner and we're having fancy wine and we're doing wine pairings. And so my mind started to be like, well, like, what would it be like to just have wine at dinner with a wine pairing? Like, I'm sophisticated now. I'm an old adult. I'm a maternal, what did I say? I'm an advanced maternal pregnancy. Like, I'm older. And so I've had these newfound challenges of like curious about like, well, could it be different? And for me, I have to pause and it's like, well, why did you start in the first place? And it was the fact that like the bad days, even though they were less than the good, the bad situations that happened were never enough for me to want to go back to drinking. And so even if, let's say, I could drink and not black out or drink and not do stupid stuff, it's not even worth it for me to explore that because I get to show up every day in control of my decisions, living a fulfilling life. And I've found like other ways to experience those things. I have NA wine that I get to sip on. I make NA cocktails. Like, it's so cool because we live in this world now where all these other avenues support a sober life. Where like when I quit drinking, there was literally O'Doul's. Like, there's so much more now. So yeah, a clear why is like definitely key.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And so, like, a lot of the people who listen to our podcast and who we hang out with are fitness enthusiasts, runners. And, like, as you're saying, like, I feel like so many environments have changed to support people not drinking. But, like, even thinking about, like, our running races, like, at the end of every race, you get a free beer, a free drink.
Or 3.
Yeah.
Or we were just at a race in South Carolina, and you got 3 drink tickets at the
Yeah.
end. And I'm like,
Yeah.
so you're going to go run this marathon, half marathon, and then you're going to finish your race with multiple drinks? Like, not even just one? And I will say that I do really appreciate Grandma's Marathon in Duluth because they do have an option for Duluth coffee at the end. Like, you can get, like, a
Yeah.
cold brew. And I'm like, why are not all races doing this?
Well, we've turned into like, I'm going to run this. And then after I run this big distance, I've earned a beer.
Yeah.
And it's like, why
I'm
don't we
gonna
just
have a
like not have
celebratory
to
beer.
earn that either? That's a whole other thing, right?
It-
Or like,
It's, I mean, it's a huge thing. And early in my sobriety, was really guilty of this. Like, I would plan Floze classes at Alchemy, like rose and yoga, while I was sober. And I had to take a pause because I was like, wait, for a lot of people, fitness is their safe space. It is their space to de-stress. It is their space to let go. What if someone is sober curious and they're walking into their gym and now we're serving alcohol? Like, we don't know how that's going to impact them. And I think it's the same thing with races. Like, having only alcoholic beer at the end to celebrate. I've run Twin Cities. It's always like a free summit. I'm like, cool. Can we get like an NA option? I just did High Rocks. They only had NA beer at the end. And I was like, this is awesome. More fitness places and races and experiences need to be open to this because more and more people are realizing, like, I don't want an alcoholic drink after a race, but it's so ingrained in the culture, like you said, Jacob, where it's like, earn it. And we have to like get rid of that. That is like such a bad way to think about it. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with you wanting to run a race and have a beer after. What I think the issue is when these places aren't offering anything NA for people. Like, what about the person that is an alcoholic? What about the person that's pregnant doing the race? Like, how do you make these more inclusive? And I think that has to be at the forefront of any event planner, fitness, wellness, anything. Like, there always needs to be an NA option because you don't know enough about the people that are coming into these spaces and places. And I think fitness for sure is such a way for people that are sober and sober curious to de-stress, and people turn to that instead of drinking. And then we're putting them in these situations where at the end, the only way to socialize is with a drink, can be so detrimental to them and their experience.
Totally, 'cause it's like you're trying to create this community atmosphere, and they all want you to stay for, like, the bands and stuff after and have, like, the grassy field.
Hmm.
But it's like, as somebody, like, well, 1, I don't like beer anyway, so that helps. But it's like, I don't wanna just, like, sit around, like, I wanna go get my celebratory, like, coffee or, like,
Totally.
celebratory, like, meal or something. But it's like, when that's the only thing, and then, like, also with our, like, Garmins and stuff, it's like you can see, like, your recovery time, like, go down or, like, increase, your HRV, like,
Hmm.
there's so many, like, metrics too that you can see that just get trashed when you drink.
Yeah.
And it's like, so then especially after a race when your body's, like, broken down, and it's like, that's the only thing that we're, like, offering people to, like, recover after.
I I think a huge thing is, like, we are our best advocates. So like what I've started doing is, like, I messaged the Hyrox community. I was like, thank you for having an NA option. And also that it was like the only option. And two, when you're going somewhere and you see that they're only offering alcohol, like, message the person that put together the event and be like, I loved the race. I loved this experience. I would just like to provide feedback. I don't drink, or I know people that don't drink, and having an NA option, especially now with how many are available, like, there's really no reason to not have something NA available for people. I think obviously a hard part is probably it's hard for them to know how much to invest because people always assume everyone wants the alcoholic option. But what I have come to learn and find out from people that are hosting events and have NA and alcohol, they're shocked every single time at how many people are grabbing an NA. Like, usually they're underestimating how many people want that as an offering. But it takes advocating. Even in restaurants, like, if I go somewhere and they don't have an NA option, I'm like, have you thought about, like, getting an NA beer, an NA wine, an NA cocktail, like, just something? And a lot of the time it's like the server and they don't know. Hi, Clara.
I need wood chips.
Okay, give me 2 seconds.
No.
2 seconds. You can say I'm recording a podcast.
Clara. Hi.
Can you give me 2 seconds? I'll be right down.
No.
5 minutes.
No.
Okay, 2 seconds. Go downstairs and I'll be right down, okay? I promise.
1, 2. Come on.
Okay, go down. I'll be right down. Sorry. But, like, with restaurants, like, I'll ask and it's usually the server, so then I might, like, follow up, like, online. But I think some people just don't even think people want it because people are afraid to ask. And so, like, if you wanna see change, like, at some point somebody has to be the advocate for that change. And it's hard. Obviously, what I've noticed is the restaurants that are making the changes first are the people that they themselves have sober staff or sober management or sober people in their companies. Same with the corporations that I've had the chance to partner with for Lucille's. I've done events with Boston Scientific. We've done events with SBS Commerce. And it's because someone in their community said, hey, we're doing tons of these happy hours. Like, can we get an NA option? So, like, I'm getting invited in because these people advocated for themselves. But the event planners within these big corporations, they don't think anyone wants that. They think everyone wants to connect over alcohol. And it's risky to invest in NA, but it's also making it way more inclusive. And, like, too, I'm like, how are corporations just, like, always pushing alcohol? That has to be such a liability for HR. Like, I've heard horror stories of people getting fired because of drinking. Like, there should be NA options, and that should be what you're pushing. And, like, alcohol is at the back of it. But people that aren't connected to sober people, I think, really have no idea how much it's wanted in all sorts of spaces.
Mhm. When I try, like, when they send out, like, the race evaluations at the end, like, what did we do well and stuff, like, I do always try to, like, say, like, I would've loved and, like, I'll mention even, like, different like, grandmas and be like, "It's so awesome that they have, like, Duluth coffee available." And so I think it's just having more people advocate, like you said.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's amazing. Like, maybe it's not an NA drink, but coffee is like such a good start. Just having
So
something besides water. Like,
yeah, because people do want to, like, enjoy something, like, you should be celebrating after you finish a race, like, that is a huge accomplishment. People do wanna,
2 minutes.
spend time with each other, but it's like, yeah, you have to have a different option, otherwise
Yeah.
that is gonna be what people go to,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I mean, I think that's amazing. And just like letting people know, I think at first is going to be, like we talked about earlier, it's going to be the ripple effect. Like, you don't know how it's going to change or impact the event in the future.
yeah. Thanks for being here, Alex.
Thank you. I would
I'll
keep
let you get
talking,
quick,
but
but
my daughter is requesting blue chips, which, if you know what popovers are, those like white cheddar popover chips.
no,
No. Oh, they just
but
come in a blue bag, so our whole family now calls them blue chips. So that's
so
that's what's being
yeah,
requested
those
right
grams
now.
are really good, so, do you have time for a quick we get to do this
Yeah.
moment?
Yeah. We're good. She's good. We're good.
So, we get to do this moment that's happened any time in your life where you're like, "Wow, I get to do this."
Mm. I think for me, a we get to do this within Lucille's was last year in December creating a winter solstice event with my friend Lane, where we hosted a morning dance party, and people actually showed up at sunrise to move their bodies and dance and created this like community and energy that I'd been wanting to create for so long in Minnesota. And then we had a dinner party that night, and like the whole day was just so magical. And at the end of it, I just felt like this overwhelming sense of like I'm in the right place and I'm doing what I'm meant to do. And I feel like that was just like such a great reminder of like, we get to do this, I get to do this. And it also really helped me, like I mentioned earlier, with that realignment of shifting what it is that I get to do within Lucille's, because it's really easy to get redirected as a small business owner and get misaligned in what you want to create. And so, like, coming back to really the why and the vision is so important. So, like, having moments like that makes me realize, like, this is what I get to do and this is what I really want to do as well.
I love that. You're changing lives, so I really appreciate what you're doing, like, this stuff is truly, like, it changes everything in people's lives, so I really appreciate you sharing your story and for the work that you do and have been doing and will continue to do, and how can people follow you in your journey and, like, learn more about what you do?
Yeah. I am on social media as Alexandra Zauner, Zauner, and then also at lucillesbottleshop.com. And so if you are local to the Twin Cities, if you go to lucillesbottleshop.com and click on events, you can see all of our upcoming events. And then we're also Lucille's Bottle Shop on Instagram. And if you're on TikTok, it's just the same handles, Alexandra Zauner and Lucille's Bottle Shop. I definitely drop a lot of sobriety tips and random thoughts and things on TikTok. More like face to camera stuff than I do on my Instagram, where it's more like thought out and things. But feel free to DM me. I'm always happy to chat with people. I've got PDFs on my Instagram that are available as well. I think the more things that are available to help people recognize like this is possible and you can do it, but you also don't have to do it alone and you shouldn't do it alone. So I like to be an open resource to people as much as I can, because I know what it felt like going through this, what was really by myself, and always wanting someone there that could show me like the possibilities. So that's like what I hope to do, is show people what's possible in an alcohol-free life.
Awesome, and we'll throw all that in the show notes, so for people listening, just we'll have all that in there to look at, so thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here. I really
Awesome.
appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. This was so much fun. I literally could have kept chatting with you guys if Blue chips are
Kids.
not being demanded of me. So thank you so much. And I appreciate you guys for having me on.
Thanks, Alex. Okay, so
Wow, Kaylee, we made it through another episode. What do you think?
we would love if you would go give us a follow, a 5-star review, and comment on the episode and what you liked and what you'd like to see more of.
See you next time.
We get to do this